Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Greg. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the talk.
Yeah, Greg, I'm excited for it. Thanks again for taking the time. But before we dive into the subject, which is going to be a fun one, Greg, let's get to know you. 2 questions we always ask every single guest. What do you love about marketing? What do you love about content? And then on top of that, let's get to know your background, work history, and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. So what I love about marketing and content, I guess, was the first question. I'd say it's really just the freedom to tell a story, right? And the freedom to be creative and to ultimately have an impact, because everything that you're saying, you're creating, you're generating, it's creating a narrative for, depending on your role, right? It could be your team, it could be your company, it could be the industry that you serve or the customers that you serve, but you're setting the tone for how people sort of look at the world, or that's the goal at least. I love that about marketing and about content. As far as background on me, I work for a company called Reynolds & Reynolds. We're a software company in the auto retail space. So car dealerships are our customers. So if you've bought a car in the US, you've probably interacted with our products. You know, a lot of companies are kind of one product or maybe a few products, but they serve a lot of different industries. We're an extremely vertical company, meaning that we serve car dealerships almost exclusively, or certainly automotive retail exclusively, which is a lot of fun, because what that means is we get to understand our customer really, really, really well. I think that's something with marketing that can be beneficial, where in so many instances you get first introduced to the company's products, right? So you learn your products and everything about them and all the features and all the benefits. But secondarily, then you're trying to talk to a customer and get them to buy something. For us, the customer is primary because we have one customer. So we get to really dig in and understand their business. So it's a lot of fun, I think. And that spreads across different disciplines. It's not just marketing, but I think, you know, in our marketing organization, having that deep understanding of your customer and their problems is really beneficial.
I love it. I love it. So today's conversation, this is going to be a fun one. I'm excited for the subject. We're going to talk about why and how you should be different and how your marketing can be different from others. And I feel like most people kind of understand why, but Greg, in your opinion, why does it matter? Why should we be different? Why shouldn't we just do the same old that everyone else is doing? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Because people don't buy better. Like being better or faster or stronger incrementally isn't a reason to change. Right? Like it's just not. I mean, you're going to have an audience that buys off of that, but there's always going to be barriers to entry and a pain of change. So, you know, just thinking that you can be a little bit better than what's already out there isn't a compelling reason to change. You have to be different. You have to force a choice, right? Do I want to keep doing what I'm doing today, or do I want to do something different? And that's really why it's so important.
I love that. So it sounds like it goes deeper than just the marketing message and how you approach marketing and being different. It's the company itself. It's the product. It's the services. It's the way you treat your customers. How do you have this kind of permeate throughout the whole business, and how do you have it really display through your marketing efforts?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously depends a lot on the company and the size of the company and the scope of the products that you have. But regardless of all that, I mean, it really boils down to communication and respect, right? So we're all, and it can be so difficult. I don't know, you know, what your experience is like. Maybe you can share a little bit too. But, you know, I think all of us have had some experience where there's felt like there's been some sort of friction between whether it's marketing and sales or marketing and product or marketing and development or any combination of all those different parts of a company. And it's really important to take a step back. And whenever you feel any of that friction, right, you take a step back and you go, you know what, we're all trying to achieve the same goal, right? We're trying to make cool stuff and sell cool stuff and help customers win. We just have a different perspective on it. So let's talk and communicate and understand those different perspectives, because at the end of the day, you know, once we land on something, it's going to be great. We just have to communicate. And that's, I don't know, it's pretty core and pretty basic, but at the end of the day, that's really it, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So one question that naturally comes to mind, if you want to be different in all these different disciplines, especially on the marketing side, where do you start to come up with the ideas? How do you actually figure out and go through the process of being different? It's hard to just say, let's be different. Being different for the sake of being different is probably not a good thing. But how do you figure out ways to be different to benefit the customer? And what's the process you go through to figure that out?
So there's, I think, three core ways. So the first one is you're lucky enough to have a product that truly was created from the start as different, right? Or a feature that truly is different. But from the start, usually that's something that happens over time, right? Right out of the gate, most products that you're going to develop, most products that you're going to sell, most products that you're going to market, they're going to be similar to something else out there. So how do you find those and create that different, I think is really the important part. So I guess the first way is you have a product that truly is just different and it's got this differentiator. And, when I sold for a long time and when I was selling, you'd always look for that, like, okay, so what's different? And it was really, really hard in a lot of instances to find a real true difference in your product. So then it goes to, okay, how do we frame this up differently? How do we frame up the problem we're solving differently? How do we frame up our feature differently? And one of the not easy, but easier ways to do it is you find a category that already exists and then you niche down inside of that category. Right. So as an example, Apple's VR headset, it's not a VR headset. What's it called? Do you remember what it's called?
The Vision Pro. It's augmented reality. It's a spatial computing or spatial computer.
No, perfect. Spatial computing. Exactly. Nobody else used those words before Apple used those words. So they sat back and they said, yeah, we have an augmented reality or AR, VR headset. It does a lot of cool stuff because it's an Apple product. So it's a great product too. But at the end of the day, it could have been bucketed in very easily with other VR headsets, which sell for $500 to $1,000, somewhere in that range. Apple's spatial computing device, it sells for $3,500 and you got to get on a waiting list to get one. So, creating that kind of new category is a great way to go about it if you can. And Apple's got a long history of doing that. So it's kind of, they have the muscle memory to create those categories. But, those are kind of the three big things is you truly have a product that was created differently. You can niche down inside of a current category, or you can try to create a new category.
I love it. That's a great framework. When you have found your secret sauce, something that really differentiates you from the rest of the industry, the field, competitors, whatever it may be, how do you know it's working? How do you measure that? How do you really know to invest more in it or pull back from it? How do you analyze, your differentiator and really if it's sticking at all?
So there's a couple ways, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to getting at bats. So in my role, I get to talk to customers a lot. So I'll try out different stuff all the time, right? And if it hits or not, because there's follow-up questions and it turns into a sales process. But I can't scale, right? None of us can scale as an individual past a certain threshold. So once you get to that point where you're like, okay, this is hitting home, this works, we're getting sales opportunities and we're winning the business. When you know that it's really something that you can continue down the road with is when your sales folks start saying the same thing, right? Because they hear it and they see it and you're putting this message out and it takes time, right? It definitely takes time, but they're going to try it. They'll try anything. Like I sold for 10 years and, you have a play and you just tweak it until it works. And then when it works, you run that play over and over and over again. So it's the same thing with your messaging, right? If I'm a salesperson, I'm going to say, okay, that's interesting. I'll try that. And if it works, I'll keep saying it. So when you start to hear your sales team saying the things that are working over and over again, that's a really good indicator that you've got something there, because those folks aren't going to keep saying it if they're not getting results, period, at the end of the day. And so that's one way. And then clearly, you look at sales results over time is ultimately what all of us are pushing towards, right? Talked earlier about we're all working towards the same thing. And there's I don't think any tighter knit group than marketing and sales. I mean, at the end of the day, we're two organizations that are really just handling different parts of the sales funnel, and we're trying to generate revenue. That's it.
I love it. When you're looking at it, and I love this framework of finding what's different, testing. I love the discipline that you're talking about here to actually go through the motions, see if it sticks before you blast it, far and wide, find the repeatable working formula. It sounds like even the sales team is a great experimentation engine. Great. Now we've found the success. Let's continue to, replicate and automate, use things beyond us. So beyond that, there's this area that a lot of people are talking about today, and it's generative AI. And generative AI has the ability to do a really good job of replicating, regurgitating other people's information in somewhat unique ways. How does being different play a role more or less with generative AI? Is it more important, less important? Why is it important? What are your thoughts in this idea of being different in a generative AI world?
So in the use cases that I've seen and used, building the framework and framing things up differently, having a different point of view, generative AI hasn't helped with that piece of it yet. It certainly helps with the content, right? So once you have that idea and you can input the data, right, this is what I want to talk about, then spitting out a lot more content can come from generative AI for sure, or tweaking it or editing it for you. Or there's a lot of use cases that are really, really powerful. And maybe you have a different experience. I haven't found a way, I'm just not smart enough to write the prompt, I guess, to get an AI tool to spit out something for me that differentiates me in the marketplace. So I don't know. Do you have a different experience?
For the most part, my belief is that AI is useful when you give it the source material. So if you say, here are my own thoughts, here's a podcast episode, here's an interview, here's my point of view, help me expand on it, I feel like that's the most useful. I did talk to someone who recently had this, and I haven't tested this idea, so it's unproven for anyone listening. Take it or leave it, but it sounded like a cool thing. They would actually create their own panel. So they would have AI imagine that they were this certain type of customer or dozens of these individuals that there were potential customers, and they would kind of use that as a panel. So I'm presenting this idea. Does that resonate? Does it not? What are your thoughts? Okay, this idea. Okay, this idea. And they basically created this user feedback cycle from AI instead of actually going directly to the consumers. They kind of preempted, those focus groups through that system.
What type of business was that in? Was that B2C? Was it B2B? Was it like what?
That one was B2C.
Okay. So no, I mean, that's really interesting. It's probably I would guess a better use case in that B2C world, right, than in a B2B world. But I don't know. That's an interesting thought process.
Yeah. And I think there's a great opportunity to say, give me variations. So here's my point of view. Give me a dozen variations of that point of view and see, okay, which one feels better, which one sticks with audiences better, things of that nature, really to amplify the efforts, not necessarily originate the efforts. So we're running out of time. We're almost to the end of the podcast episode. Again, these are daily doses of marketing knowledge for people. But Greg, when it comes down to it, what is your top piece of advice to anyone saying, okay, cool, we need to be a little bit different? What should they think about and how can they actually implement that mindset today? Is there any advice that you could give anyone from that perspective?
Yeah, I would say two things. One, get inside your customer, whether it's B2B. I'm in the B2B world. So to me, go in their store, like see what they do, see the problems they have, really understand their business. If you can do that, it's going to make it a lot easier to solve a problem in a unique way. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, really just look at what everybody else, because we all have competitors, right? What is everybody else actually saying? What problems are they fixing? And how can you shift the mindset, shift the framework, shift the point of view to be different than what they're saying? So you have to have this lens. It's great to come up with your own ideas, but if it's essentially what the other person's saying anyway, then it's pointless. So you have to find this area and really understand what your competitors are saying, assuming that you have pretty direct competitors, and they're going to anchor in something, or at least, if they're decent, they should. And then you can find something to anchor in that's just, a few degrees off of that, but it's different than what they're saying. It's fundamentally different. So learn your customer, see what's already out there, and then find a place to anchor that is different than what they're doing.
That's awesome. And Greg, I've learned a ton. I love this idea. I love these frameworks. I love how you think about being different, providing that extra value for your customers. It's awesome. Greg, if anyone wants to reach out and further the conversation online, how and where can they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn's the easiest place. Just Greg Uland. You'll find me. I'm the VP of Marketing at Reynolds & Reynolds. GREGULAND.
Perfect. Love it. Well, Greg, again, thanks for the time today.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.